Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another episode of Mind Your Fucking Business with your host, Jeffrey Krentzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, or Dougie Fresh, as you seem to be going as around the studio here this morning for some reason. Coming to you, as always, from the studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Fucking Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project, as well as Allied Construction and Roofing. We always thank them for their sponsorship. We greatly appreciate it, and we encourage you to check them out as well. This is episode number 85, 85 on the Spanish dial. So welcome from wherever you're tuning in from around the world to listen to us this morning, or whatever time of day it is you're downloading the episode. You can send your questions at any time, of course, to mypbshow@gmail.com, or as I now say every week, you can also DM us on Instagram, as that seems to be the place we are getting more and more questions these days. And the Instagram handle, if you're following on the video feed, is conveniently across your screen at Mind Your Fucking Business. If you're trying to remember the Instagram handle, it should be pretty easy. Mind Your Fucking Business. Yeah. We're not trying to make it complex. You can listen to the show, download it, whatever you want to do on a variety of different platforms, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Facebook. So whatever your platform is that you're listening to us right now, we appreciate you tuning in. How are you?
I'm great.
A lot going on.
I am great.
We went in this studio from like a while, like just joking around, to being live in a matter of 10 seconds. And there was no in between, because we have a guest coming on and it just got bumped up a little bit. So he'll be on shortly. So we went live quicker than we were ready to, I think. And Geoff Sheasby, the great Geoff Sheasby, yes. You know him. He's been on the show before. You've seen him on CBS. Football Man, also known as the Old Man Who Bets, is his handle. He's a pretty popular guy. He'll be joining us to talk some NFL shortly. But before we do that, for the first time in like 3 months, there is legit, well, I should say 3 months, but there's Ranger news, because Ranger training camp opened, and it opened on Tuesday, 2 days ago. We're taping this episode here on September 22nd. So, but before it opened last week was a very strange development, and it happened the day after I think we were live last week, which was maybe a good thing, because I was pretty riled up about it, as were other Ranger fans. And that was Niels Lundqvist, who was a first-round draft pick years ago, a defenseman who made his NHL debut last year for the Rangers briefly, didn't play a lot of games, had some injury issues, didn't really come back in the lineup, decided to inform Chris Drury, general manager of the Rangers, that he was not going to report to training camp this week when it opens and wants to be traded. Wow. Now, I don't understand. So I was on, and I got to give them a plug, because I was on Rangers Ed podcast. Yeah. We've had them on our show before. I was on their show on Tuesday night. We taped a Ranger season preview. Phenomenal episode whenever they come out with it. But these guys got real heated on this topic too. And this is what drove me nuts, right? Yeah. You're 20-something years old. You've played a total of a handful of NHL games. Who are you to sit here and demand, I'm not going to come play on the team that drafted me and I'm under contract with, and you must trade me? I don't know where athletes now, I think when you go back 20 or 30 years ago, this was not a thing, right? It wasn't a thing where, I don't want to say prima donna, but, athletes are just holding out saying, you know what? I don't want to play in this city. I don't like this coach. I don't like the system that the organization is playing out on the ice. I want to be traded. So I don't know who Niels Lundqvist was to sit here and just make this statement and say, I'm not going to play. Now, where fans got it wrong was immediately, like, the news came out, I think it was last Wednesday, and then everyone on social media, Chris Drury screwed this up again. It's another draft pick like Kravtsov was last year. Hold on. Let's deal with like real facts here. Yeah. Chris Drury did not draft Niels Lundqvist. He didn't. Jeff Gordon, who is now the team president up in Montreal, did. Same thing with Kravtsov. So you can't sit here and pile it on Chris Drury. This is not Chris Drury's mess. Now, he's got to clean up the mess, but he didn't create the mess. He's not the people that drafted him. So this happens, and then out of the blue Monday night, I wouldn't say out of the blue, because you had a feeling he was going to be traded. You just didn't know when. Comes the news that Chris Drury, who everyone's piling on unfairly last week, comes the news that Chris Drury was able to trade Niels Lundqvist on Monday to Dallas for a first-round pick. Now, The fact that Chris Drury got a first-round pick for this kid is amazing. I
Mhm.
mean, Chris Drury has fleeced the Dallas Stars. I'll go on record saying this. Niels Lundqvist may be a good player in the league. He's a defenseman.
Mhm.
But from what we saw last year, and again, the sample size was not big because we
Mhm.
didn't have a lot of games. For me to say, okay, this is what I saw. This is the attitude that this kid is, right?
Mhm.
Because he's going to demand a trade. I can now get rid of him and bring back a first-round pick. Please, where do I sign?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the point to me, the real kind of, I think, ending of this, which is
Mhm.
good, is the pick that is coming back, which is a 2023 first rounder. Granted, it is protected, a top 10 protection,
Mhm.
has a very good chance of being a better player that we draft next year than Niels Lundqvist will ever be. And he's an attitude problem. But I don't understand where players get their kind of this mindset where, you know what, this team's going to pay me,
Mhm.
X amount of $1 million for the next 4 years, but I just don't want to be here anymore. I'm out.
So let me get this straight. You got a guy who barely got any ice time saying he's demanding a trade. Now, this is the argument between MJ, Jordan, and LeBron. Like, Jordan stuck with his team, like never want to get traded, whatever. And LeBron like went to a bunch of teams, right? This kid never played. Like,
And that's
make him suffer.
Well,
it's great that we got the first round pick. We won. Like, joke's on him. We won. We got a first round pick. But like, I would ignore that. Like, you like, we're setting a precedent where athletes can just be like, I don't want to play here anymore.
Here's the other difference, and you kind of just alluded to it, and
Yeah.
it's a big difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Jordan and LeBron make these claims, and again, Jordan didn't really do it, and LeBron, whatever, I've never been a fan,
Mm-hmm.
goes to other teams. It's news because they're good, right? Jordan and LeBron. I don't like either one. Matter of fact, Michael Jordan single-handedly cost the Knicks in the early 90s of getting an NBA title. I don't like either of them. However, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You're not in a position
Yeah.
where you're that good that you can demand these kind of things.
Yep.
So okay, here's a comment coming in from someone watching. Now, Niels knew he wasn't going to make the team, so it's completely fair to him to do. Yes, we knew he wasn't going to make the team. Gerard Gallant yesterday actually said that the sixth defenseman spot is up for grabs, and it probably would not have been Niels. But to me, I don't understand these young athletes now demanding a trade.
Yeah.
And his agent, this was what we talked about on this podcast that was on Tuesday night, is Claude Lemieux, who was a prick, right? He hates the Rangers. Matter of fact, his son got traded off the Rangers. So he wasn't good. So whatever. You know what? Give credit to Chris. Yes.
This kid wasn't even going to make the team. And we got a first round draft pick for this kid.
Yeah. So in the end, it's fine.
Thanks, bud.
In the end, it's fine. But I have a problem with people that think that they can just demand to be traded.
Mm-hmm.
And as another comment I see coming in, yeah, he's good enough to play in the league, but I may take my chance. I'll roll the dice on getting a first round pick next year. Now, we know the Rangers' history of draft picks. They don't usually work out. But I'd rather roll my dice and say I'm going to start over from what I saw him in. Again, small sample, and I don't want that attitude around the team. I'll take it. The other thing before Geoff Sheasby comes on yesterday. Yeah. So we've talked on this show, and I don't remember who was on. I think it was Johnny Lazarus, about what the Rangers are going to do line-wise, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what you know is given. Okay. There's not a lot of givens, but here's what you know. Okay. The top line is going to have Chris Kreider on the left wing and Mika Zibanejad in the center. The second line is going to have Artemi Panarin on the left and newly signed Vincent Trocheck in the center. Everything else, for the most part, is probably guessing. Okay. The question that everyone wants to know, right? Well, if you've got Zibanejad and Kreider and Trocheck and Panarin, who's playing the wing on each of those lines? Right. I've been campaigning on the podcast for I don't know how long, and Johnny Lazarus, when he was on, agreed with me, as was most Ranger fans have, that it's time to give Alexis Lafreniere, you like it. See, I see you smiling over there, time on the first line. This guy, 2 years ago, on a blazing hot Monday afternoon in August, when Gary Bettman drew the New York Ranger logo out of that little lottery ball machine, right? You knew he was coming here billed as the next coming of Moses. Look, the kid line is cute with Cheadle and Kako. I get it. However, can we please let Alexis Lafreniere get a chance now to move up and play with other superstars if he's really a superstar? Right. So the news came out yesterday that Sammy Blaze is going to play or at least is starting. I shouldn't say he's going to play. It's not opening night, but that's the plan going forward into the preseason. And I will be at the preseason game Monday night, actually. So depending on who's in the lineup and who's not, I may be able to see
this Monday night.
Monday night, yes, starts. Yes, this Monday night. But what? But to me, the Sammy Blaze thing to me is mind-boggling. Now, look, maybe it works, and you're not set in stone, right? It cannot work, and you can make changes. That's the beauty of this for Gerard Gallant. You can always mix and match. However, I would rather you start with what I think has the best potential, and putting Lafreniere up there.
It's an ego boost too. Like, I feel good. Oh, I'm getting my chance.
Here's the other thing that you can draw a conclusion. Process of elimination.
Okay.
If the first line is Kreider, Zibanejad, and Sammy Blaze, and the third line now is Kakko, Lafreniere, and Cheadle in the center, who's left to play the right wing for Panarin and Trocheck? Well, you don't know.
I don't know.
But I'll tell you, it's Kravtsov. I don't have a problem with that at all. As a matter of fact, I may actually like that, and I would keep Kakko on the third line. But please, like, it's just, when is Alexis Lafreniere going to get a chance to play like he was billed to be here? When? I
don't know. I mean, people are going to be rooting for this kid line too.
Yes, and that is that's a fair point. People are going to now, and the Rangers will sell shirts, T-shirts that say kid line. Matter of fact, I've seen it on WeBleedBlue.com. They already have them, right? So now people get all into this kid line, which is fine, but give Lafreniere a chance to see if he is who he was billed to be. He's not going to do that playing with Filipino. I'm sorry. And I know there's people, including the one that just wrote in, that's going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But let him play on the top line, right?
Yep.
So
I like it.
Why don't you put the third? I see there's another that one. Only the New York Rangers would take the next Moses and say, yeah, you played left wing your whole life, and we're going to move you to the right. Yeah. But I'd rather see if he can play on the right where he's playing with Zibanejad and Kreider than playing with Filipino and Kakko, who has not really shown much. So Ranger preseason opener starts Monday night at the Garden. So when we are on next week on Tuesday, we actually can talk about some, even though it's a meaningless game, but we can kind of do some analysis, which is fun, get back into hockey season. But we are in the, I wouldn't say middle of NFL mania. We're getting into it 2 weeks in.
Just warming up.
Wonderful guest for us to have on the show. We try and get him all the time. This may be the world's most busiest man, and that is Geoff Sheasby of Old Man Who Bet, also known as Old Man Who Bets. Jeff, you there? How are you, bud?
Gentlemen, how we doing? Thanks for having me. Always great to be on the show.
Good. Welcome back. How are you, stranger?
I'm doing well, man. Great day for a great day. I'm so happy that fall's coming. I'm so happy that football is back. I didn't even know that the NHL was coming back in the preseason, so I learn something new every day. But, I mean, most wonderful time of the year outside of the holidays, right? We're coming into baseball playoffs. Again, Sundays are cool. Thursdays now are fun. In a couple of weeks, we're even going to have Tuesday night action in college football. It's a sports fans' wet dream right now.
Yeah, I was actually saying to someone a couple of weeks ago that this is the best time of the year, right? You have the NFL coming back for betting. You have college football. You have baseball, which is going into, the playoffs in October. College basketball returns a little. I mean, this is the most, and hockey and basketball start. I mean, it's really just a good time of year. All right, Jeff, let's talk some football with you to start. Injuries around the league, always a major thing. Dak Prescott, week 1. My fantasy quarterback, Trey Lance, out for the season week 2, which maybe was a problem that he was my fantasy quarterback to begin with. But what do you think? Let's start with the Cowboys here. Can they stay afloat until he comes back?
I think so, man. I mean, this division outside of the Eagles looks pretty inconsistent. Sure, the Giants are 2-0, but statistically here, they're 32 in the league, and my favorite stat, which is DVOA and Dave, essentially looking at a percentage of how much better or worse a team is. So 2-0, that's all fluff to me. What, Dak's out for 3-4 weeks? He should be back. We got Michael Gallup might be playing this week. They're getting the horses back. Rush looked pretty good last week, which I was shocked about. So if you're a Cowboys fan, I think you could probably still sneak in, maybe in the 2 seed. I mean, I guess the Washington Commanders here are probably the biggest threat here with Carson Wentz, second in the league in yards, 7-4 touchdown interception ratio. The guy's a gunslinger. So I think Philly's probably got this one locked up. But other than that, I think there could be room to sneak into that wild card for the Cowboys.
Okay, staying in the NFC East and giving a little local question here. The Giants. Now, you don't control your schedule. You play who you play. Tennessee, maybe it's not as good as they were last year, as we saw up in Buffalo Monday night. And Carolina came in over the weekend, barely got by them. Carolina, I don't think, is that good of a team. I think they've lost 8 or 9 in a row. Is there any, obviously long term, the future with Dable looks good, but let's talk about this season. Any chance in your eyes they could sneak in as the last wild card down there, or no?
I mean, we've seen teams sneak in. I remember the Seahawks a couple years ago, 7-9, make the playoffs. I don't think this is a Giants team that's going to be able to sustain any of these results, right? We look at who they've played so far. Again, I'm looking at DVOA. It stands for defensive value adjusted over average. It takes every play and every outcome and then figures out a percentage of how much better or worse a team is. So the Giants right now are 32 in the league. Teams they've played, Carolina is 27th in the league. And I forget who they just played and won. Who was that? Who are the two teams they played? The Titans,
Tennessee.
currently number 31 in the league. So it's like, I mean, it's nice that there's a little bit of jolly energy over in MetLife, one of the worst stadiums on the planet. But Doug, I see you're wearing the jersey, man. The best thing that the Giants are going to do this year was that Eli Manning, 1, StatCast, and 2, that fake little video he did where he was trying out for Penn State. Absolutely hilarious. But I think it's going to be short-lived, but could be a good thing, right? Lose some games, get some more draft picks, continue the rebuild, and be relevant in a couple years.
All right, NFC West. Let's go. We'll stay in the NFC. The 49ers lose Trey Lance, Jimmy G now coming in. The Seahawks are not good. The Cardinals haven't really looked that great. The Rams did not look good on opening night. They looked better, but they beat a lowly Atlanta team. Who would be the horse in the NFC West you think is going to win the division?
I think it still has to be the Rams, man. I mean, I know they obviously lost some talent. They don't have Odell. They lost Von Miller. But it's interesting to see that really the only team in that division, the Niners, with even a plus point differential is the Niners, right? You got the Rams here at 41 points scored, 58 points against. The Cardinals at 54, 67 against. But both of these teams have played pretty good teams, right? You got the Cardinals coming in against the Chiefs week 1. That's tough. They beat the Raiders on the road in week 2 with a pretty heroic upside or comeback. Like, that's Cardinals football right there. Now they play the Rams. It's going to be a great game this week. But I think those two teams, I think it's a toss-up between those 3 teams, right? I think Jimmy G almost makes this team better, honestly, for the 49ers. Whether or not that's sustainable over the next couple of years, probably not, right? They've almost moved him for like 3 years in a row now. But in the way that it's currently constructed in terms of league experience, in terms of being a great game manager, Jimmy really checks all those boxes and does a really good job of that. Trey Lance, hard to even, talk about week 1, right? It was an absolute monsoon. That game doesn't really count in terms of like actually being representative of what a team is. And then, of course, we got Jimmy in week 2. So absolutely terrible to see a young guy like that go down. Such a promising future for him, we hope. But I think it's going to be a coin toss between those 3 teams. And honestly, should be really, really fun to watch it play out.
So the NFC North, similar to the NFC West, in that every team right now is 1-1. We were talking last week. How can the Packers really be good? They lost Devontae Adams. Who is Aaron Rodgers throwing it to? I mean, time does catch up with you. He is getting older. I was really big on the Vikings and then did not like what I saw Monday night in Philadelphia at all, especially as a Justin Jefferson fantasy owner.
Mm-hmm.
So the NFC North, I'm going to guess you would agree with me that it's probably between the Vikings and the Packers, one of those two. And is there one of those two you like?
Yeah, I prefer the Vikings for sure. I'm hot on the Vikings as well. And I think you said it, right? We lose 150 catches, 1,500 yards, and 15 touchdowns with Devontae Adams last year. And, I think it's one of those things where the narrative was, well, Aaron Rodgers is great at keeping plays alive. Absolutely. True statement. But who was the one bailing out Aaron Rodgers to keep those plays alive? It was Devontae Adams. It was beating the triple coverage and getting open on those extended plays. So will Sammy Watkins be that guy? Does he need to be that guy? I guess those are 2 questions there. He did have 4 for 5 for 93 yards. I think it was last week. Lazard's coming back, a solid receiver as well. And of course, they're trying to really establish this run game with Dillon and Aaron Jones. But this is a Vikings team that I was super bullish on in preseason. Of course, they got smoked on Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins 9-18 in primetime games, something like 51-41 in all other games. So stay away from him whenever the national television is watching. But that's a team that's loaded, right? You got Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the league. Dalvin Cook, even Mattinson, 1-2 punch there is insane. Cousins, kind of a gunslinger, honestly. He makes some bad decisions every now and again, but outside of the GOATs in the league, who doesn't? And it's a defense that's kind of retooled, right? They brought in a new coaching staff. They had all the pieces in place. They were in a little bit of a catch-22 in the sense that, were they good enough to keep the team together, or were they bad enough to rebuild? They obviously went, we're going to keep the team together. We're going to give this another effort here. So I like them. I don't know the odds on the top of my head to win the division right now, but if they're plus odds, not in first in the division in terms of the odds, I think they're a fun little sleeper here, and I think they might be the team to beat.
All right, NFC South, you got the Bucs at 2-0. Obviously, the Panthers do not look good. The Falcons do not look good. So I guess it's the Buccaneers and the Saints. There's kind of like, a lot of people, a lot of buzz about Jameis Winston. I'm not sure that I'm buying that. Is it the Buccaneers division to lose?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, Atlanta, who the hell knows? They're not doing anything good. The Saints, the Saints have a great defense, and they should be better, right? That last game, you know what? It was a 20-10 win for the Bucs there. That was a funky one, right? It was 3-3 going into the fourth. Jameis throws a pick six. But this is a Saints offense that's finally reloaded. Michael Thomas is back. Olave looks pretty good. Kamara obviously was out last week. Granted, Tampa Bay's got one of the best run defenses in the league, so would have that mattered? Maybe, maybe not. But he also at least takes a ton of pressure off of Winston on those, on the check downs, on the screen passes, things along those lines. But Michael Thomas, Olave, Jarvis Landry, that's pretty solid right there. I think Winston is more of a gunslinger than we give him credit to be. You got to recall back on his last year with the Bucs before he got eye surgery to actually be able to see the field. He did throw for like 5,000 yards, like 45 touchdowns. Granted, he threw 30 interceptions. So I'd like to see the Saints perhaps, remove the restrictor plate off of him a touch more. Not saying going full-blown Rex Grossman on him, but nonetheless, I think it is the Bucs to lose. The Bucs are super banged up, which is interesting, right? Evans is suspended. I think he appealed. Not sure the play there. Godwin's still out. Julio Jones is out. So we're starting Brashard Perryman, Russell Gage. They just signed Cole Beasley. Scotty Miller still on the roster. Obviously, we got Cameron Braid over there as well. So it is interesting. We saw Tom get very, very frustrated against that Saints team, slamming down Microsoft Surfaces, calling out his team to be better. His O-line is also banged up, and yet they still come out and win by 10. So, and especially against the Saints in the regular season, the Saints have absolutely dominated them in the regular season the last 2 years. So I think now that they've gotten over that hump, it's going to be tough to beat Tom Brady ever. The guy's got a career 58.3 cover rate. I love betting on them almost blindly. Am I a Patriots fan? Yes. Is that biased? No, that is a data point of 58.3, right? That's huge. I mean, if you told me you could win at 58.3% in anything, I would take that blindly. But yeah, I think this is a Bucs to lose. I think they're pretty balanced on both sides. Elite run defense again, and playoff Lenny. I love that he's apologizing to fantasy owners on Twitter because he hasn't scored any touchdowns yet, saying that the touchdowns are coming. So just a team front to back that I think is really solid.
Apology accepted because he is my starting running back. I just want to make sure you know that. So I did see that, and it did make me feel a little bit better. Although he did have a good amount of yards, especially the week 1 game in Dallas. All right, so
yeah, he's running well. That's for sure, man.
I would say the surprise out of the first 2 weeks in the AFC has to be the Miami Dolphins. They were favored by 3 and week 1 versus New England at home, covered that easily. The other day went up to Baltimore, and Lamar Jackson's going to have an MVP year. I've been saying this because it's a contract year, and he's exactly what he's doing. But for them to come up and win that game, Dolphins are 2-0. They will not win the AFC East. Obviously, that's the Bills to lose. This weekend, they play each other, and the line, as I saw it last night, were the Dolphins home getting 5.5. In that game, you leaning one way or another?
That's a tough one for me, man. The line, I think, very much speaks to the Miami Dolphins, even at 6 here. What I've been looking at is essentially the difference in DVOA, right? The percentage difference between the two teams, then juxtaposing that against the spread. So this week alone, it's just a kind of a tough play here in the sense that the line does favor Miami. Miami's a tough place to play, but the Bills look like just an absolute buzzsaw out there. I don't know if I've ever seen a team look this good on both sides of the ball this early. And it's not like they're playing slouch opponents, right? Tennessee, supposed to be good. The Rams, very good. Come on the road. Not granted, LA doesn't really have any home field advantage here. But it's one of those things where even if the line does favor them, right? For example, there's a 25% point difference between these two teams. Buffalo's number 1 in the league. Miami's like top 10. But the line's only 6, right? In comparison, let's see, what is curious here, or the similar line? Minnesota versus Detroit here, also -6. The difference between those two teams is only 3%. So if you have one of those at 25% and the other at 3%, and it's the same line, from there, I'm saying that's a weak line for the Bills, and I'm saying that's a very strong line for the Vikings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you. Good
yeah,
insight.
so that's where it's like, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we like when you talk analytics here. I mean, that's what we like. That's good.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Good.
So always just trying to figure out kind of line strength, right? And, even with a shitty line, I'd probably take the Bills. I went 2-0 on the Bills this week. Took them first half of game. Took them week 1 as well as dogs. Easy victory there. So that's one of those that even if the line is telling me to take the Dolphins, I'm probably not going to touch it because The eye test is saying kind of Bills all day. Yes, Miami absolutely had an unbelievable comeback. It's one of the best games I've ever watched. But the Baltimore Ravens also have an absolutely terrible secondary, right? An absolute sieve. So, of course, Waddle and Tyreek are elite. But this is a Buffalo team that hasn't shown many holes. I think it should be a fun game. I think it'll be a really good stress test on, is Tua legit? Is this Miami Dolphins team legit? I think they are. But you got to remember, even on some of those bombs, Tua did underthrow Tyreek by 5-10 yards. Thank God he was that open. But will he have that chance to get that open this week? Maybe, maybe not. So I just think it's a no play and kind of appreciate as a football fan.
We were saying a couple of weeks ago that the AFC West is loaded. You had the Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders. I think the story out of there is how good the Chiefs have been in the first 2 weeks. I mean, they take Tyreek Hill out of the offense. I mean, you still have Mahomes and Kelsey and these guys. They brought in Juju Schuster. You just would have thought you would have saw some drop off, but they scored 71 points now in the first 2 games, and they look like they're going to, I don't want to say run away with the division, but they're the favorite there. Would you agree with that? The Chiefs now?
Yeah. I mean, I think you got it, right? It was so interesting, right? Because, Tyreek to Devontae Adams, right? Both of them obviously huge holes to be leaving the team. And then Devontae obviously comes into the Chiefs division here. Super, super interesting. But, it's the sense that I feel like Tyreek was more of like a blow the top off, but that offense was more balanced than the Packers, I think. So, interesting enough, right? 71 points scored, second in the league, I believe, only behind the Bills. I think the only other team really worth chatting about here is got to be the Chargers, right? Epic game last time. Obviously, Herbert throws that pick 6 on the 1, tied 17-17, and then still comes back and covers with a broken rib, right? That is some epic shit right there. I was on the Chargers that game. But nonetheless, they don't throw that pick 6. Herbert rarely throws pick 6. Gerald Everett was absolutely gassed after a 40-yard reception. They probably should have called timeout there. Could be a coaching woe. They were trying to push the pace and kind of exploit the defensive gasness rather than the offensive, and it really bit them in the ass. So, you take that timeout there, you think about what play you're running, all of a sudden we got a different ball game. We got the Chargers at 2-0 in the division. We're saying, are the Chargers the team to beat? So I think it's between the Chargers and the Chiefs for sure. I think you'll probably get interesting plus odds on the Chargers to win the division at this point. Chargers this week for me is kind of a no play. -7 is right where it should be, I think, versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I think the battle between those two teams for years to come is going to be really, really inspiring. I think we do need to talk a little bit about the Raiders, right? Obviously Derek Carr acquires Devontae Adams. They played together in college, something like 38 touchdowns, 3,000 yards in 3 years. Really inspiring stats over at UNLV. And they haven't looked very good. Devontae Adams had 2 for 12 on 7 targets last week. It could be the case if they're just working out the kinks for sure. They're not as deep of a team as the Packers were. But I think they've definitely underperformed expectations coming into this season where, kind of the narrative was when Carr is healthy and he has his weapons, this is a very dangerous team. They've looked not that dangerous so far.
So the last 2 divisions to go, AFC North, NFC South, really, I don't think there's a favorite in either division. You got the AFC North, the Steelers, Ravens, and Browns are all 1-1. I mean, with the Browns, how do you lose that game at home to the Jets? Like, really? You play that game, you play that game 1,000 times, you lose that game once, maybe, and that was the one time. Mm-hmm. The Bengals are 0-2, but they were in the Super Bowl last year, so there's some talent there. The AFC South, you have Jacksonville leading the division. They're the only team in the division with a single win. The Texans 0-1. The Colts look awful 0-1, and the Titans, number 1 seed last year in the AFC 0-2. Let's start with the North. Who comes out of the North?
The North, I think you still got to be banking on the Ravens here, right? I mean, interesting because like the Steelers, pretty decent defense, pretty whatever offense, and the Ravens right now looking like the exact opposite of that. But I kind of trust Lamar. I think the Browns are probably the most interesting team here, especially with Deshaun Watson coming back in Week 11, right? If they can weather the storm with Jacoby Brissett and be in contention, you got to think that Amari Cooper to Deshaun Watson to Amari Cooper is going to start popping a little bit. That really opens up Kareem Hunt as well, who's been open the last 2 weeks, and Brissett has simply missed him. Deshaun Watson doesn't miss those throws. So I think the Browns are probably the most interesting team in the league in that division. I don't know if they have enough time to be able to, kind of just stay relevant. It'll be interesting. They've got a big matchup tonight, right? What is it? -4.5. Kind of actually love the Browns tonight. I think it's a pretty strong line. We're looking at only a 6% difference between these two teams, and the line is at 4.5. So I think it's a pretty good indication of the Browns. I probably will be on it. Haven't locked it in yet, but that's where my head's at there. And the Steelers. AFC South. Yeah. Oh yeah. AFC South. Let's see. What was even in that division? That's the Jags. I mean, the Colts and the Titans were supposed to be the class of the division, right? You know, you got Matt Ryan coming into Indianapolis, Michael Pittman's breakout year, Jonathan Taylor, best running back in the league, great offensive line, pretty solid defense. You know, I think we can expect pretty big turnarounds from both of those teams. Even looking at it this week, you know, I think Indianapolis is actually probably one of my favorite bets as an underdog, plus 5.5. There's a 23-point difference there between these two teams against KC. So that's a really weak line, I would say. And then the other side of that, you got Tennessee, also kind of one of my favorite dogs of the week. Plus 1.5 it is versus the
I like that
the
bet. That's
Raiders.
one of my picks. Yeah, that's one of my picks. Getting the points at home versus Vegas. Yep, I'm with you on that.
Exactly. And that's a 15-point difference, which is big differences for anybody watching here. Like that's a large gap. So the line to only be 1.5, that should be probably between 6 and 8, I would think, at a 15-point difference. So, you know, again, just trying to let the data kind of drive the story here. I think both of those teams are great bounce back purchases here. That a little bit unlucky and a little bit have played terrible football, but you know, you got to think with a shortened preseason with, you know, QBs in the new team. Obviously, we've got AJ Brown no longer in Tennessee either, who was a huge bailout for Ryan Tannehill. But you see a guy like Burks started to put together some pretty good weeks. You know, solid week 1 as a rookie. I would say even more solid week 2. And plus, they played against the Bills, right? They had 8 in the box every play. They said beat us over the top, and the Titans aren't going to do that unless they get the run game going. This Las Vegas team, not the Bills. So I think that's going to be both of those, I think, are really good runs.
I agree. Geoff, thank you for joining us as always. Come back and see us again soon, anytime you want, and you fit us into your busy schedule. You're always welcome. Thank you, Geoff.
Hell yeah. Maybe even next Thursday. Let's talk about it.
You got it. We will be here.
Ooh, yeah.
That is Geoff Sheasby. Again, you can see his handle. We'll put it across the screen again. Old Man Who Bets. You can follow him for some good advice. The man knows his stuff. So,
Geoff, I bet the Giants to beat the Bills in the Super Bowl, and I'm going to get paid out $3,000. So,
hey man, you know it's Oscar versus the books. If that happens, first round's on you. I love it.
Yeah, buddy.
He's buying us all on that one.
Hell yeah.
So thanks
Later,
again,
guys.
Geoff, for joining us. That is Geoff Sheasby. Now, our NFL picks before we leave for the week. So week 1, we started out the season 1-0. I didn't tell you about how we did week 2, did I? I don't think we've spoken since
No.
then, right? Okay.
Recap? Week 2
Yeah,
recap?
well, we have to go through it. So we went. Look, wins are wins, losses are losses.
Yeah.
So it's straight up, right? We had 2 wins and 3 losses, so it's a losing week. You know why we lost?
Why we lose?
Because the Jets come back. I had it. We had a winning week because one of our picks was the Browns -6 at home versus the Jets.
Wow.
So here's what we had right. We had the Lions -2.5 versus the Commanders at home. And I told you I loved the Jaguars getting 4 at home in their home opener, and they won by a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that right. We had the Steelers +1 at home wrong versus the Patriots. And Monday night, I was just way off on this. I thought Tennessee would keep it close versus Buffalo. I was like, 10 points is a lot. Buffalo will still win. And yeah, Buffalo won by 20-something. So I wasn't that close. But it was the Browns -6. I had it. And the Jets, I shouldn't say your New York Jets because you're wearing the Giants gear today, but one of your teams screwed us. Good for them to get a win.
Yeah.
But we're now 1-1 in the year. We're moving on to week number.
Got to pick the locals early. They can let you down, then you bail on them. But right now we're riding high.
That is true. So, all right. So here we go with the week 3 picks. Geoff Sheasby, just mentioned he likes tonight's game. I'm going the opposite. I never bet on Thursday night games, and I like this game tonight, and that is the Steelers +4.5 at Cleveland. I think the Steelers can keep it close. Let me just actually double check one thing on this because I want to make sure the line hasn't moved. Because Geoff Sheasby said it was something that, no, I am right. It's 4.5 still in Cleveland. I'm not impressed with Cleveland at all. I think a rivalry. This is a low-scoring game. I like the Steelers to keep it close. Give me the Steelers +4.5 on Thursday night tonight in Cleveland. The Patriots +3 at home versus the Ravens. Lamar Jackson is on a tear. But if the Patriots are going to do anything, and historically the Patriots have done okay versus Lamar Jackson, I have the Patriots getting 3 points in a home opener in Foxborough. Give me the Patriots +3 at home. I'm staying on the Detroit train. It's worked 2 weeks in a row. I'm doing it again. I'm sorry, Paul Farrington, if you're listening. I'm taking Detroit +6 at Minnesota. I expect Minnesota to win the game, but for the way Minnesota looked on Monday night And as good as Detroit looked last week, I think Detroit can keep it close. Give me Detroit +6. Next one, Geoff Sheasby was on the same page on this as me. Tennessee +2 at home versus the Raiders. 2 0-2 teams. The Raiders have more talent, but Tennessee needs to win, and they're home. So Tennessee +2 at home versus the Raiders of Sin City, Nevada. And the last one, I struggled with this pick. Carolina at some point needs to win. I think they've lost 8 or 9 in a row going into last year.
Wow.
The Saints, I'm not on the Saints train at all. Carolina's at home getting points. This has to be a week you do something. Plus, you're getting points. Give me Carolina +2.5 at home versus the Saints. Go ahead.
Real quick, while you're on this subject, how many games do you think they're going to give Baker before they go to Sam?
I don't think Baker was awful in week 1. Sam's still hurt though, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's hurt. Yeah, your boy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, your boy. I don't think it's an option.
Sorry, Sam. I'm pushing for you, bro.
I know. There is no Sam Darnold fan in the world that I've met like you. I mean,
I just
literally.
don't like the disrespect. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's not even that I'm a Sam Darnold fan. I just don't like how some of these organizations handle things like Eli Manning.
Or let's look at the other side, like we talked about a half hour ago when we started. Niels Lundqvist, disrespect from the player to the organization. It happens both ways. It doesn't mean 2 wrongs make a right.
No, but he's wrong. He's wrong. He's a nobody who barely touched the ice. Eli was the Iron Man, never missed a game, and is one of the greatest of all time. He beat the greatest of all time. Eli beat the GOAT, Tom Brady, twice in the Super Bowl.
So you think he should just
he's the GOAT by whatever proxy.
By the way, and I know this is a dumb thing to say on the air. Is that rain outside that I hear, or is that it sounds like it is, right?
Oh, yeah, it's coming down.
Yeah.
It's coming down hard.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on outside.
Get it out of your system.
So, all right. So the redo of the picks or recap. Steelers +4.5 tonight in Cleveland. Patriots +3 at home versus Baltimore. Detroit +6 at Minnesota. Tennessee +2 at home versus Oakland. And Carolina +2.5 at home versus the Saints. Anything else?
You got louder.
Yeah, the rain.
It's a tornado out there.
I mean, we may have to.
I hope we're still alive.
we may have to evacuate the studios here in a couple of minutes.
You did that really fast. Did you mention our local games?
We're gonna do. That's where I was going to next.
Nice.
So the Giants are 2.5 point favorites at home versus the Cowboys on Monday night. Who do you think?
Let's go. I'm going Giants, baby. I'm riding this train. Got my first ever jersey worn on the show. Eli Manning. I got the Giants beating the Cowboys.
So do I. I think if you're the Giants, and I think that place will be rocking on a Monday night game.
It's going to be a whiteout.
The
coach Dable sent an email to everybody and the season ticket holders. We're wearing white. We're having a whiteout, white towels. So you might see me there with this jersey on.
Yes. And then the other local game, you have the Jets coming off of a crazy win in Cleveland at home versus the Bengals. And the Jets are getting 5 points.
I'm going Jets. Bengals are looking.
I'm not, because here's why. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
Bengals, I don't think the Bengals got their stuff together. I think they're a little rattled, and I think it's a great, after coming off the win last week, I think the Jets are going to shake things up, and I think they're gonna win by like 3 points.
Okay, look, it's so in the common error since the NFL redid the playoff structure where they added the 7th team. No team has started 0-2 and made the playoffs, right? The Bengals are 0-2. You can't obviously go 0-3, and you're playing the Jets. You need to win. I'm taking the Bengals -5.5. It's not part of our 5 picks, but because we picked the local games.
Yeah, make sure that one's not part of the 5 picks.
You know what? Hey, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But anything else on your end, sir?
No, super excited for Monday night. I think that's going to be a crazy game. Given the circumstances, it's going to be a whiteout, and I'm hoping to go and have a great time.
Well, we will look for their eye on Monday night while you are at the Giants game.
Yes.
I will be at the Rangers preseason opener versus the Islanders.
Nice.
So,
if they weren't the same day, I probably would have tried to go to the Ranger game as well. But
and you know what? It's preseason. You could have, because there's plenty of tickets available. If anyone out there would like to go watch a Ranger game, the most affordable way to ever go see Madison Square Garden, and it works for the Knicks too, is preseason, because the ticket prices are just down.
Absolutely.
So, and Monday night is also the second night of the Jewish holiday Rosh Hashanah. So you're also cutting off some people maybe that would have went.
They gotta stay home.
Yeah. So We thank you for listening to us. We thank our sponsors, as always, the Bamboozle Project and Allied Construction and Roofing. We appreciate their support as always. And as I mentioned before, we ask you to check them out. Again, you can send your questions anytime, mypbshow@gmail.com. DM us. Also, Bamboozle Project, the winter hat. I know there was a clip last week with the winter hat we talked about. That one up there is available on the site. You're going to want that because apparently when you and I leave the studios today, we're walking out into a monsoon, what it sounds like. And other than that, anything else on your end, sir?
No, you get 25% off with promo code MYPB. And yeah,
you got it.
And I think one of the hat colors are like Giant and Ranger themed. So not only are they MYPB hat,
they are
actually red and blue. You could rock them at a Giant or a Ranger game
or a Monday night football game.
Absolutely. So you better get it.
Better get it quick.
Yeah.
Expedited shipping. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will see you next week.